what's going to happen next, that we are going to touch self, that the two divided sides inside of the consciousness are now going to meet. Matter and antimatter are going to join together, and either there's going to be a big fight and someone's going to lose again, and there's going to be a debilitation and then an abortion and all of what goes on with this continuous cycle that we see, all taking place in each form of consciousness resident on this plane and multiple planes that are outside the field that I'm going to explain to you today. So, all right, looks like we got a chance to let it breathe. Sending much love, wholeness, and balance out to the moderators, holding space inside the chat. Thank you so much. You also see Nightbot dip in and out from time to time, dropping links. Definitely check out those links. Just save them at some point. We have our subscriber system going on, so if you'd like, subscribe, whatever, we'll actually see that notification in the corner of our screen. As you know, this has been 10 years. I got 100,000 views, 100,000 subscribers, 110,000 subscribers. Wow, whoopee-doo. You know what I mean? When I look at what's happening, man, there's so many levels of filtration and unfairness that goes on in this reality. It's like instead of even trying to encourage these people to fix what they have going on, I just build my own stuff and then invite my own tribe into it and then let us expand that way. So the first thing that we have going on here today, now, as I said, for y'all that saw the announcement, we're giving out 10 gifts, so that's going to happen later on in the show. And again, I can confirm our system is working, so that'll be great to enjoy that time. But first, we got to go into a deep dive to actually talk about, and not just talk about, but to actually embody what is common sense, but common sense ain't common. So we got to look into something that people should have saw this a while ago. We've been talking about this over and over again, but for some reason, remember, time, space, frequencies, all that also matters. Somebody could be telling you directly what you need to do, but can you comprehend it? And if not, sometimes it's just not your time. Sometimes it's just not going to be applied at that point. But then at certain moments, especially if everything is lining up for you, then you just get it. And then from that point on, it changes something inside of you. It flips a switch in the DNA. Something that was off is now on. Something that was on is now off. Just a flip of a couple dip switches. Okay, so first of all, we're going straight to 0 point. Okay, somebody said, get straight to the point. All right, so we're going to go straight to 0 point today. That's how we're going to do this. And the first thing I want to say is that, again, if we're on a road, if there's channels and there's a road and there's a path, like we use these terms a lot. I'm on the path. Oh, he's on the path. Okay, what are these paths? So let me show you what these paths are very briefly here. Roll my thing out here. Also, for those that are actually listening today, let's say you caught the podcast or whatever, I would recommend jumping onto the YouTube live channel and seeing episode 8 live or the archive, because there'll be images today and there's no way for me to get around, especially if I'm going to simplify this, using these images as a way for us to realize what exactly is going on. So first I'm going to show you the paths. Okay. Now it's often mentioned straight and narrow is the path. Okay. So what's happening here is that we have these 3 channels that have been known as the Pingala, the Ida or the Ida, and the Sushumna. Okay. And to make it very simple for those that don't like things complex, and let me make sure that it's hosting my image here. Yeah, it's hosting my image. You have these 2 channels on the left and the right, and we talked about this. This is like the left and the right side of the brain. And then we have this center channel, okay? Now, this is basic. So I'm explaining this in a basic way, so this should not confuse you. You have 3 channels inside of your body. One of them is actually responsible for bringing up the heat, while another one is responsible for bringing the cold. Okay? And one of those channels has always been likened unto the sun, which is actually in the base of the body. It's in the root chakra. It's around your sexual organ where all the fire is. Do you not feel the heat and the passion that comes from that? And then the other one that is based on the cooling is somewhere around the third eye or in the center of the head. And that is what is known as the moon or the subconscious or the cool, right? And so that's what these 2 channels stand for. And then we have this center channel, which is actually where we mix these two energies. And that's also a cognate of the center of the spine. So let me show you a few other diagrams that say that same thing. Because also your organs, which we know as the planets, okay? Remember, the organs are the planets. They play a certain tone. There's a harmonics of the spheres. We talk about that with the golden ratio and the golden intonements and the whole ratio and the whole octaves, etc. And these are the sounds that come from the vibration and the oscillation of these organs functioning. When they function properly, they make a harmonic tone. Some call that 528 hertz. Okay, it's a harmonic. And when they're not functioning properly, it's like listening to an orchestra where a few instruments are out of tune. And also it's not pleasing when that happens. And it also causes a form of chaos. And I'll show you that it actually causes the production of an illusion of being separate. Okay, so but you see it here, that there's a wisdom already. And this is why I said today, we're just going to go over what the ancestors applied. Now, because I could say the ancestor taught us, but the reality is that where are the ancestors now except for within us? So anybody that is coming to teach this, then they would be the ancestor teaching you. But it's more stomachable for many people to just know that, oh, no, this is how it's being applied. This is how it should be applied. This is what they applied. This is what the massive beings have done, and they're still out there in order to get, this is what they knew in order to get themselves into different spaces, whatever their objectives and agendas were. They knew this. This is the core knowledge, okay? Because this is how you steer your vehicle. Now, between these paths that I'm showing you here, these paths that you see here, and even if you drill in further, you get these, what I would say is micro paths. It's like they're like roads off the main highway. So everything about the consciousness is actually designed around having these different interlacing, what they call the horizontal and the vertical waters. We also know that in the torus field where 2 points intersect, that is where life is created. It just means that the two opposing forces where they intersect, there you will find life as you know it on planet Earth. And the reason why I'm bringing this up first is because you're going to need to keep this diagram inside of your own mind. You live in one, but you're going to need to keep this diagram inside of your mind every time you start thinking about why you should maintain balance. Okay? And this is because the whole art of occultism, as it stands, occultism is only the art of balancing out the sun and the moon inside of your body. Okay, inside of your consciousness, to balance out the two poles. Now, just because you cannot balance them out doesn't mean that something is not going to happen. And this is what I'm going to get into right now. Here's also another ancient symbol before we dive into this, just to realize that these ancient symbols are virtually identical in their schools of thought. One itself being Hermetics and the other one itself being alchemy. That these two symbols are actually hinting to the same thing, that you have to understand each component. And we can use the caduceus because it's the most familiar that we're dealing with right now, that we have these two channels. So obviously in the caduceus, you have the two snakes. These are the two snakes, okay? Ida, Pingala, okay? And then also you have this center channel. That center channel is the Sushumna, okay? And then we have these wings up here, which you see wings also on the left in the Ankh, which is symbolic of you cannot get out of your body. You cannot fly. You cannot transcend from one who crawls upon the earth or actually is the earth, which you'll see here in a minute, versus one who traverses the heavens or has wings. And we even know that in biology, snakes eventually really evolve into being birds. Okay? The actual, let's say that's the scales of the snake become feathers of a bird when they have transcended. So this idea of transcending up the ladder of light is what we've all become to know as raising Kundalini. Okay? Because Kundalini is likened unto and is embodied in many cases by a serpent or a snake-like energy. Okay? And these are, when you say snake, there's so much that goes on with it. This is not your standard garden snake. This is not even just a dragon in itself. These are all metaphors for physical planes, wisdom, knowledge. That's why you see Hermes with this in his hand. So these symbols literally say that in the base or in the bottom or on the planets or on the plane exist the snakes. Okay? The physical form of existence. And as you rise up through these channels, which are the activations of the chakras, which is getting the glands and the organs functioning properly and in balance, and also learning how to use them. So let me pause here for just a brief moment. Remember, we talked about, like, what is the whole purpose of Earth anyway, right? And I dropped those jewels for anybody who wants to pick them up, because there's so many, oh, we're trapped, we're slaves, and, you know, and all that may have happened. But the original purpose here is for you to learn about your power, because you were given your power already. It was an inheritance. There was no way it could be kept from you. However, you don't know what you have. Just like if I have a child and that child has always been raised in a wealthy family, they don't know that they're rich. It's normal for them. They need to actually see poor first before they realize what rich is. So that's the contrast. That's actually why these planes were created. It's a universe. It's a university. It's a place to teach you lessons based on contrast. But the most important lesson is who you are and about your powers. And again, we talk about this descent of Anana, which is, it's basically a code for flesh and all of the diabolical aspects of it too. But that Anana being stripped, earrings gone, you know, crown gone. This is the crown chakra. Robe gone. This is the awareness of the aura. All these things she was stripped of before she could come all the way down to the underworld and to actually begin to see her son. And what this is a metaphor of is that all of your powers and abilities have been hidden in a way. So that way, you can go through these experiences, like all of these traumas and things that you see on earth. Like, you're going to be tested to have courage. You're going to be tested to love. And if you get through these tests, you will then get this reward. It was as simple as that. You go through the test, you get the reward. You go through the test, you get the reward, you unlock the ability. This is a role-playing game. All of the ideas that they're getting from these video games and even the computer and everything that you're seeing in the reality, there is really nothing new under the sun or nothing new in the soul. Okay? That's what that means. And so it's literally saying that, hey, this is a role-playing process where you're going to take on these characters called egos, and you're going to keep going through these experiences with the egos, and you're going to zigzag through your experience. Now, let me show you another diagram here very briefly, just to get it very clear for you on how elaborate this is. This is not a game, okay? Meaning that, well, it can be game-like, but meaning that they're not playing with you. Okay, on this diagram, what you're witnessing, and some may have to cock your head to the side, what you're witnessing is you're witnessing the Kabbalistic kingdom inside of the consciousness, which is also projected externally. Okay, this is the Cadman. This is also known as the Temple of Solomon. Okay, and while you're trying to zoom in and see the specifics and maybe fascinated by all the symbolism and all of that, as a snake is fascinated by shiny things, the easiest thing for you to understand is that every time you zigzag, when you zigzag out onto the left or the right of the system, you experience what is called the illusion, okay? Because the illusion is the illusion of separation. So very directly, how the world we're living in right now is created is it's created on pi and phi, okay? The world is created on pi and phi, okay? And what that is it's a curve or a spiral. Okay, did you not see those twine serpents zigzagging up the pole? That is the curve of phi. That's why they say the curve or phi produces this reality, and everything in the reality is adhering to that fractal code, right? But the power of pi and phi is that they are able to create this phenomena that henceforth never existed, which is the phenomena of separation. Okay, now this is why you see this apple, this bitten apple, right? Because we talked about how the apple is a symbol of the pentagram. Okay, so when you cut an apple in half and you open it up, you'll see it has 5 seeds in a perfect concave pentagram, as long as it hasn't been GMO'd. Okay, and what that is about is that map is actually the precession also of Venus, also known as the light bearer or life bearer, the lie of life, the illusion of separation. Now, again, let me desist here, because some minds are trying to figure out still which one to hate. And the only thing you'll find is yourself. If you start demonizing any of these components, well, I won't even use the word demonizing, because that word has its use too. If you start distorting anything that I'm saying by trying to find out which one's the good one and which one's the bad one, you're still acting like a kid. You're still a child. You haven't realized that the world is more complex than good and bad. That I can show you someone that has done things thinking that they were doing good, and it actually impacted people in what you feel like is a bad way. And then I can show you vice versa. Why? Because the knowledge tells us that between these two snakes, and generally when you see the drawings of these two snakes, one is white and the other one is black. But between these two snakes, they're both the same. And that's what many people don't get. They're still trying to polarize themselves on paths of preferences. Okay, so they're sitting off on one of these zigzags and sitting off in one of these kingdoms or chakras or planets that are polarized. They haven't actually brought the consciousness into the center to realize the power of creation. That's why I did this recent recording. If you haven't heard it yet, it's called The Master Key to the Matrix. Check it out. I'm just explaining this in layman's terms, that the last thing that you really learn here before you complete your degree here of being able to take the fire of this plane and realm and the temperatures of this plane and realm, the last thing that you actually receive. Give me one quick second here. Something's screwing up with the system. Give me 1 second here. Okay. All right. So anyway, there's just something going on. Just make sure I get the system correct here. But anyway, let me keep going. So now zigzagging, which is where we're at. So if you come out of balance, and let me just rewind here for a brief moment. Okay. Let's look at this really briefly. I want to back up here, because this is going to be short and sweet today. I don't think we'll even go over an hour and 15 minutes, but it's important that you see certain things about this, because it's an order here of magnitude. All right. So the first thing is to understand that actually the Taurus or the Sri Yantra or the Merkaba or the aura, whatever you want to call it, it wants to ground. Okay. Ground is synonymous with balancing. Okay. Because that's what a foundation is. Imagine having a foundation, or imagine trying to balance something, right? And the foundation is crooked. How can you do that? It's very difficult. So ground is synonymous with balance in the higher esoteric laws. So let me bring you a phenomena that goes on in nature. Hurricanes, okay? And I see some subscribers coming through, and the thing's just, going out really fast. So, hey. So a hurricane, okay? So when hurricanes come, if you look at this oblique spheroid, which is what the planet is, okay? Some people, they're still going over this process of trying to figure out if the earth is flat or not, okay? Because they're distracted. They're just reciting news again. The earth is an oblique spheroid. It looks like it's flat on both, on the top and on the bottom, and then it bulges out on the sides, okay? And when you look at that design, you find that the entry point of when the ionosphere, which is basically this upper hemisphere, when it's grounding out, because it wants to ground out. This is a big Merkaba, Taurus, Sri Yantra, aura. This is a big one that we're also living in. This is why fractals work this way. You got one you're living in. We're living in one. Some states our nations are configured like that. Some cultures are configured like that. Some buildings are built like that. And in fact, a perfect master builder builds like that because they're trying to emulate something that is going to last a countless period of time, at least billions of years. So the closest that you can get it, okay, the closest that you can build something to this design, the longer that it will last. Okay, so the phenomena that happens here is that as this ionosphere begins to whip it up, because that's all this is, like on the top is whip it up energy, and on the bottom is ready to receive that energy. You know, this is the path of life and the creation of life. So they say that if you notice the points of, let's say, the tetrahedron on Earth, there is a common point or at least path of resistance that hurricanes always travel. They touch down right off the coast of Africa, and then they come up through that whole area, and the landmass of Africa continuously backs them off so they stay into the ocean, and then they come all the way up and around to the Caribbean, and then eventually they hit Tornado Alley and those kind of places, Florida and those kind of places, okay? And it's because what this hurricane, which is just energy, is looking for is it's looking to ground out. It needs to touch down and ground. So this is the same thing. Like recently I started getting affected by these migraines, and I was like, man, what's happening? It was like every time that I even started going into these high levels of meditation, I would start feeling like these headaches. And then also people were saying that they were getting shocked by me, like I was shocking them. And, you know, two and two together, not trying to make it all like it's all mystical all the time or mist or we can't see what's going on. I was generating so much electrical current, but I wasn't grounding out properly or taking the time to, you know, I, of course, walk on the ground and stuff like that, but I needed to actually strap down sometimes or actually literally discharge my field, especially after I build up the field. Like even right now when I'm talking, like I get hot and I feel the field picking up and it does this thing. But maintenance on the field is that it wants to ground out though, because if I just jump right off the line right now and I go into the world, it's like almost like I spin out of control. It's like I never really get ahead or behind of whatever I'm doing in the moment. It's like I'm just too like chaotic, like static electricity. And that's just because I picked up the field and I utilized it at that level, but then I forgot to ground it out. And then how that looks in the brain is the brain neurologically and all the telomeres and all this stuff, they just get all haywire. And then that causes a migraine, just in case you've been having those and been wondering what the hell is going on. And of course, because of the sun's transformations, which is doing, men have been feeling the sun's transformation, many women feel it also, but we've been feeling the sun's transformation every time early in the morning, to be honest. But and the women have been feeling the moon's transformation every time their cycles come around and during that time where they feel fertile, okay? So it's always been happening, but as things come more into balance, just like we're going into this eclipse on the 22nd where the earth will be in the middle, the sun will be on one side and the earth and the moon will be on the other side. So during those times, energetically, we're going to feel and receive certain things as long as we're tuned in and as long as we're on the path. But what I'm getting at here is that that's why I'm making this very important, is that when the hurricane does not get a chance to ground out, when it does not find a place to ground out, it tears shit up. It wreaks havoc. It goes on land, kills folks. It doesn't take its normal path of energy because, see, Earth has a normal path of energy just like we have power lines, just like your body has these normal paths of energy. And it doesn't harm anyone unless it gets off the path. And I'm bringing this all to your attention because there's many beings off the path right now. And many of them have this power, stole certain levels of power, activated certain planets within themselves, they accepted that instead of reaching the Sushumna, because it's so complicated for them, straight and narrow is the gate. On one, what they say, on one side, deep water. On the other side, flaming fire. Didn't I just tell you about these two poles? So this means even in the Bible is only a plagiary of these same texts explaining to you that straight and narrow is the path of where you want to be. And to achieve that, to see heaven truly, you must come into balance. This is more of the story that the Bible is omitting because it is deceptive. Anything that omits the natural truth, which could be told in a couple pages, is deception in itself. It is some other entity formed just like me and you, trying to manipulate, meaning it lives just like me and you. Even when we pass on from here, we will exist beyond this. There are other things that exist beyond this. But for them, they're like really scummy in the matter. You know how there's people right now that you won't be able to convince to come into balance? It's them. The energy is coalescing in them. And because it cannot be convinced to take the straight and narrow path and to come into balance, it's living off in one of these polarized worlds, and it's creating these polarized worlds, and it's trying to invite as many beings as it can into that world so that they can serve it inside that kingdom. You got people on YouTube doing that work for other beings. They don't even know the beings they're working for. They're always channeling something, always signing something, always giving themselves up, opening themselves up. And they know nothing about these ancient practices and principles, which we're going to be talking about here in a moment, that are so imperative that you know about before you just open yourself up. Folks opened themselves up, and then when they came back, they didn't notice there was something else sitting in the corner of their house. See, your body is a temple. They didn't notice that when they left and they opened themselves up for the channel and then they came back, they didn't even notice there was something else sitting in the temple with them. They just assumed it was themselves because they're halfway out of their mind. Okay? And you can tell that by the things that they suggest and what they say. And because humans are storytelling beings, you know, they just come up with all these stories and they have this essence of truth. But then they're just riddled with falsehood. That is the forked tongue of the snake. That's called the forked tongue. And it's symbolic for that there's a zigzag zig going up and down the tree of life. Okay? Remember, the tree of life is the balance. That's why it's a tree. And then twining up the tree, okay, that's why you got to, well, who are the roles here? There's 3 roles. There's the center column, totality, unity, the unity code, etc. And then there's the zigzaggers, the actual created and known worlds of division and all of the stuff they have, the computers, the cars, the flying, the games, the movies, and all of that stuff that goes on in those created or manifested worlds, which are built on pi and phi, the golden ratios, the golden numbers, etc. Because they are attempting to emulate as close as possible the kingdom. And someone asked about that little slightly being off on the ratios, but they're slightly off on the ratio. They don't exactly, it's not the harmonic tone. It's like the difference between 440 and 432. It's like you really have to be able to listen and say, something's off. It's also really easy because if it's just all about separating and there's no talk of unity, then it's clear. If there's still we should hate them, we should get away and destroy them, we should get them back for what they did. These folks are trying to get you to buy deeper into the illusion. They're working for beings that have a vested interest in staying in the illusion. That's why they talk about, these beings can't get back they can't get back to heaven. They don't want to go back to heaven. This is like talking to your homeboy and trying to explain to him about this great news. And he's like, let's just get this money, folk. He does not want to go the Sushumna path. And that is up to them. But is that what's going to happen to you? Are you not able to see very clearly how many of the teachers that are around now are actually working for the divisive forces? Okay, so let's break this down just a little bit and build it back up. I say, for instance, that, first of all, if we were building, which I'm always building something and creating something. I'm a creator. But then sometimes you look in the community, what do we need? A vote. We just need a voting system. If this is the conscious community, which is like a nation, then we need some organization in the nation. when are we going to actually put something together? And this is what I'm even working on now. I'm asking the question rhetorically. When I think of it, I immediately go into action and say, okay, we could take the directories, we could take all the specialist advisors, we could now add categories of them, and then we can actually start enlisting people we can reset all of the votes that are there now, reset it all back to 0, and then ask people to come in and start really rating the messages that they're receiving from these spiritual teachers. So that way we can find our pioneers and then put them together and then actually create a space for them to be in so we can collaborate on this build of information that belongs to all of us. Because each person coming in saying, this is what I was told by spirit, and this is what is the truth that I found out. Oh my goodness, you couldn't be so further from the truth. You didn't find anything. Your language doesn't even belong to you. The trees, the essence, the cells, the blood, none of this stuff belongs to you, so it's not yours. You cannot copyright it. You cannot trademark it, but yet they have, because all this goes on in the world of division and delusion.
This embodied presence you have been